SpaceX acquires xAI in record-setting deal, as Musk looks to unify AI and space ambitions. China's Xi calls for equal, multipolar world as he meets Uruguay leader. Clintons agree to testify in Epstein congressional probe ahead of contempt vote. Calls mount for Andrew to testify as U.S. releases Epstein emails. Trump announces U.S.-India trade deal, lowers tariffs to 18%. Elon Musk said on Monday that SpaceX has acquired his artificial intelligence startup xAI, uniting his space and AI ventures in what is now the largest merger deal ever recorded. The transaction values SpaceX at about $1 trillion and xAI at $250 billion, according to people familiar with the deal. Investors in xAI will receive SpaceX shares in exchange, with some executives given the option to take cash instead. The acquisition brings SpaceX together with xAI, the developer of the Grok chatbot, and is expected to strengthen Musk's ambitions in artificial intelligence, satellite services, and future space-based data centers. It also positions the combined company to compete more aggressively with major AI rivals such as Google, Meta, OpenAI, and Amazon-backed Anthropic. Musk said the deal marked a major step toward advancing artificial intelligence alongside space exploration, describing it as a new phase in both companies' missions. The purchase surpasses the previous record for the world's largest merger, set in 2000 when Vodafone acquired Germany's Mannesmann. The combined SpaceX xAI entity is expected to price shares at around $527 each. SpaceX, already the world's most valuable private company, is also preparing for a potential public offering later this year that could value it at more than $1.5 trillion, sources said. The deal further consolidates Musk's business empire, which includes Tesla, Neuralink, and the Boring Company. China and Uruguay agreed on strengthening cooperation and supporting a more balanced global order during a high-profile visit to Beijing. Chinese President Xi Jinping told Uruguayan President Yamandu Orsi on Tuesday that Beijing and Uruguay should work together to advance an equal and orderly multipolar world and promote inclusive globalization, according to state media reports. Orsi's visit is his first to Beijing since taking office in 2025, and marks the first trip by a South American leader to China this year amid broader geopolitical tensions. He is leading a delegation of around 150 officials and business leaders through Saturday, with planned talks in Beijing and a stop in Shanghai. The two sides signed a joint declaration to deepen their strategic partnership and agreed on 12 cooperation documents covering areas including science, trade, environmental cooperation, and intellectual property. Uruguay aims to expand exports, investment, and economic ties with China, while China reaffirmed support for Latin American sovereign development and closer economic coordination. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton and former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify in a congressional investigation into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, potentially averting a contempt vote against them in the House of Representatives. A staff member confirmed the decision on Monday, as Republicans in the House were preparing to vote on whether to hold the Clintons in contempt of Congress for previously declining to testify in person. The investigation follows the recent release by the U.S. Justice Department of millions of documents related to Epstein, revealing his connections with prominent figures in politics, business, and academia. House Speaker Mike Johnson said discussions were underway regarding whether the contempt vote would be paused, adding that he welcomed the Clintons' decision to testify. The House Oversight Committee, chaired by James Comer, had recommended contempt charges last week. Comer said the Clintons have agreed in principle to testify, but have not yet provided dates or clear terms for their depositions. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is facing renewed pressure from victims, lawyers, politicians, and U.S. authorities to provide evidence about his knowledge of the late financier Jeffrey Epstein, following the release of new emails by the U.S. Department of Justice. The emails, reported by the BBC, detail a prolonged but ultimately unsuccessful effort by U.S. prosecutors to secure Andrew's cooperation. They show attempts beginning in early 2020, followed by a formal request later that year to the UK Home Office after voluntary discussions broke down. The correspondence reveals growing frustration among US officials. In one exchange, prosecutors wrote there was no point rehashing our previous conversations and pressed Andrew's legal team on whether he would agree to an interview and when it would take place. Another email concluded that efforts to obtain a truly voluntary interview have been exhausted, prompting US authorities in April 2020 to submit a formal mutual legal assistance request to compel testimony. Prominent victims, lawyer Gloria Allred, said Andrew still has an opportunity to assist investigators. "It's not too late and he does have information he could share," she said. Allred questioned why Andrew agreed to a 2019 BBC Newsnight interview, but declined to cooperate with law enforcement. United States and India agree on trade deal. US President Donald Trump announced on Monday that the United States and India have agreed on a bilateral trade deal after months of negotiations. Key elements of the agreement include downward trend tariff reductions. The United States will immediately lower its reciprocal tariff on Indian goods to 18% from about 50%, including penalties tied to India's earlier Russian oil purchases. According to Trump, India will move to reduce its tariffs and non-tariff barriers on US imports to zero, though New Delhi's official statement so far only confirmed the tariff cut on Indian exports. Oil drum energy and purchases. Trump said Prime Minister Narendra Modi agreed to boost purchases of US goods, including energy, technology, agriculture, coal, and other products worth up to $500 billion. He also linked the deal to India stopping purchases of Russian oil, a major point of US pressure over the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Reuters and other outlets report that this was part of the understanding, though Indian officials have emphasized only the tariff cut to date. Coin market reaction. The announcement boosted financial markets in India. Stocks, bonds, and the rupee all rallied, as investors welcomed the easing of trade tensions and expected stronger bilateral commerce.